Hi there. I don't know if this is actually working yet, but or if it's interactive. But if it is, and you are there, then you're welcome to say something. Yeah, this is part one. This is the first one I'm going to make because there's so much to say on this subject. Yeah, let's talk about spiritual teachers. Yeah. There's so much to say on this subject. Ah, let's see. Hi, Amy. So now I know that it's working. Yeah, first of all, I'm going to give you a little shot of where I'm sitting. Yeah, so let's talk about spiritual teachers. Yeah, that is teachers of the spirit. Those that transmit the deepest aspect of ourselves. We all know, everybody knows that, well, we call it spirit, right? Everybody knows that there's a spirit or something inside of them that's unnameable, but it's something which is not of this body, right? Although it's living through this body. Everybody knows, like anybody will talk about the spirit of me, my spirit. Spiritually, I feel this. Teachers of the spirit. Those who have been pointing to that, like down the ages. I hold this thing because, or can this thing be held? Hang on. No. Okay, so those that have been pointing to the spirit of who we are down the ages, teachers of the spirit, those who transmit not the personality, not the conditions of the body-mind, but the spirit, the essence that lives through this life and beyond, right? So teachers of the spirit have been around for as long as we can look back, yeah? And anybody can be a teacher of the spirit, right? And then there's been those that have like given their whole life to just residing in the spirit, orienting, like speaking from that, pointing to that, evoking that, empowering that for others, pointing, saying, hey, look, you are not this pain, you are not this suffering, you are not these conditions, you are not this limited behavior pattern, you are not, there's something more of you, like pointing to the spirit of you, like to evoke it, to bring it alive, to bring it awake, to give it some space for recognizing itself, like, yes, yes, I know that this is me, yes, and this has been down the ages, and I say, thank God, whoever he is, I say thank God, because for me, you know, and for maybe you, if you're watching this, and for many, right, to have that confirmed, to have that recognized and empowered and evoked, and like a big yes, like yes, to have that, to have someone standing so clearly in that and speaking from that and pointing to that and so clearly delivering and transmitting an energy that is undeniably of something that is recognized so deeply in my being, like yes, ah, thanks God for that, you know, whoever he is. So yeah, the first one in the life of this one, I mean, I read books and stuff, but when I came across Osho, Bhagwan, Sri Rajneesh, who was a master of that, you know, no matter about the stories, no matter, when I first came across him, there were all these stories, there was so much going around. I was not interested in any of that. I just was like, bang, you know. It spoke to something so deeply in me that there was just this like, bang, wake up. Like, this is it, this is it, this is it, yes. I have to go there. This is my way. Right, and I followed that calling. I didn't care about all what the newspapers said. I didn't care about the stories. I wasn't interested, right? I just was following this recognition, right? Innocently, yet like it was what I was waiting for, right? So that it started there with me, with him, and his confirming and his clear to evoke that in me. It was like the gift, the blessing, you know. Anyway, there's so much that I can say around this subject, you know. However, I'm going to make it a little bit brief because I'm on my way to my dad's. I'm going to just go and take him some hot soup and surprise him, right? So for now, I'm going to make a quick one and I'm going to come back on this. So for the moment, right, over the last few years, let's say, there's been teachers of the spirit, so-called spiritual teachers, have been given a bad rap, right? Yeah, and that's because some of those teachers, in their human self, were not, the human of them was not totally clear, you know, and there were behaviors from the human side of things that still played out. And you know, we can talk about sexual abuse, usually from the male side of things. This is not bias. Can be woman too, can be woman leaning into the masculine, you know, but normally on the male side of things, because the male side had more the tendency to hang out in the absolute perspective, right? So the absolute perspective does not is not concerned about the relativity, the human side, the play of this life, the behavior, the walking as a human being. The absolute perspective is beyond all that, right? And the masculine side of things had this tendency to go to nothingness, to emptiness, to absolute, to, you know, I mean, in the beginning of my walking this realization, this recognition, this awakening, like 20 odd years ago, of course I was in relationship with a man who was hanging out in the absolute and doing that thing, you know, checking out and like just going in, there's nobody here. So I myself was like pointing at that and calling that out and, you know, like ranting and raving about that. So I understand it. I understand that. I understand that, right? So in the beginning of walking that way, I mean, I also had no integration into the little nitty gritty, the everything of this life, all the bits and bits and bits and pieces. You know, I still had behaviors that belong to my child self, to my patterned, conditioned, unconscious self, like everybody does. Absolutely everybody. Nobody skips over this, right? It's to be integrated. It's what follows the initial awakening. So maybe more natural for the feminine to be more in touch with her feelings and want to honor her feelings and all this kind of side of it all, you know, in the play and all the juiciness, all the you know, whereas the masculine side more absolute nothingness, absolute beyond it all, nobody here, and it's that deep masculine essence, presence that awakens deeply in the core, which is before any manifestation, right? And it's neither masculine nor feminine. It has no gender. Yet if we want to talk about relativity, then comes the first flavor of duality is stillness and movement, which I like to call absolute and relative. Silence, stillness, and sound and movement, right? So before the sound is silence, before the movement is stillness. You cannot separate them. You cannot separate the absolute and relative, right? So anyway, going back to the original subject, spiritual teachers, right? So over the last few years, there have been, you know, like coming out, the things that I was actually shouting at my man about 20 odd years back. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't behave like this, you got to, you know, shouting towards his human. And of course, my own human having many behaviors that still belong to the conditioning. Right. So over the last few years, mostly guys, not always, but mostly some males have been called out for, let's say the most common thing is sexual abuse, right? You know, kind of being in a position of power. It's an authority position, and, you know, women just like seeing a man in his power, in his authority, it's just like, right? Because what woman doesn't get turned on by the depth of the man's presence? Yeah? Tell me. Who's that? Is it somebody or nobody? Can't see. Anyway, what woman doesn't get turned on by the depth of presence? Right? Shakti. Anyway, so yeah, that's a bit of a temptation for the male, isn't it? Yeah? Yeah, maybe the other way around in many cases, but yeah, more so anyway. And so coming to a point in our place of evolution where this awakening is becoming more and more available for many, many, many to start recognizing, I am that awareness that looks through every pair of eyes. Ah, I am that. Like, you know, I mean, what made this readiness here? I mean, of course, it's beyond the human play, yet all of the preparation and the ground that the great masters laid for us, you know, like this is within the story, okay? To be clear, the ground of all the wonderful, wonderful transmissions through books and teachings and all kinds of everything, you know, it was there as the ground for us to like study and learn and go along, find a path and search and slowly, 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 slowly become more and more, more and more ready for nothing. More and more ready. So within the story of this play of humanness, they laid the ground. Is the grace of all these gurus, the grace of all that transmission that gave us ways to search and go and find and, yeah, I mean, I bow down to that because without that, within the play, right, there is no separation anywhere and it's all itself doing itself, yeah, yeah, blah, blah. Okay, right. So now coming to the point where after all of this ground has been laid and a point of readiness for recognition, more beings starting to be ready for the moment of the stopping of the mind. And then there comes a point where this so-called abuse has reached its point of like, it's come to the surface to be all looked at in our arena, not just the teachers of the spirit, but doctors, police officers, mommy, daddy, children's homes, foster parents. Tell me, name me one place where there hasn't been abuse. Give me one area. So why should the so-called spiritual teachers not be within that whole? You know, it's been every single area, starting with mummy and daddy, right? How many children have been abused by their parents sexually? Yeah. And then it goes everywhere, in places, all places of authority. Right, you know what? I'm getting cold. I'm starting to get cold. It's really cold here. And I'm going to cut it here and drive to my papa and give him some chicken broth. So I'm going to leave it on that point and I'm going to continue really soon. And if you like this subject or you want to add some comments, you want to ask something, you want to whatever, put it in the comments and I will include it in the next one, which will be coming soon. Subscribe to my channel and share it if you think it's of value. And I should tell you that I should do a bit of advertising. Next weekend I have a weekend intensive deep diving weekend, and there is an early price until tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna leave it that because I'm cold. All right. I send you much love, and yeah, let me know in the comments, whatever. Yeah. To be continued. Ciao for now. This is the bit where I don't actually know how to end it. Someone just made a comment. I couldn't really see what it was. Ciao for now.